Do you guys remember Doombots? I sure do, but that's only because I'm an old ass bitch playing this game. I started playing in 2013 and at this point in time the low level strategy was to pick Master Yi and wait until the enemy bot lane showed up, and then you take this route right here and kill them. Unfortunately that strategy still exists today. League of Legends at the time was already a fun game with tons of variety in every match, but to stay relevant not only did Riot have to come up with innovative skin ideas and champions, they also had to change up the way you played the game. Enter featured game modes featuring Hexakill. It's literally one more fucking player on both teams. One for All, a game mode where everybody played the same champion, was the featured mode to start this all off, until eventually Riot progressively released more and more of these fun new additions. A lot of these were incredibly creative, but one that always stood out for me was Doombots. In this game mode, your team was pinned against 5 enemy bots, each with enhanced abilities and increasing strength. These bots were an absolute nightmare to go against, as their abilities were powerful enough to erase your existence in less than a second. For example, Lux's ult fired in 12 directions at once, Ziggs's Q would often chase after players, and Fiddlesticks, believe it or not, could drain multiple enemies at once. Wait. It was honestly really fun to play and a breath of fresh air for those who were tired with the same standard game modes. With that being said, in today's video I'm going to go over the history of Doombots, which will act as a history lesson for all the new players who just started the game, whilst the veterans get to sit back and enjoy this nice nostalgia trip. Enjoy. Prior to the release of Doombots, every featured game mode up to this point was player versus player, so when Doombots came along there was a high expectation for League's first ever PvE event, and League of Legends didn't disappoint. The concept was simple: a team of 5 goes against a team of bots, with the goal being to find out who the fuck asked and destroy the enemy nexus. However, the main obstacle was the omnipotence that the bots now possessed. The main gimmick of Doombots was that the enemy AI was now filled with bullshit. There are a select few of bots you could face, each with enhanced abilities. For example, Karthus could often use his passive when he was alive, making him untargetable, and Cho'Gath's ult could stack up to 10 times. At the time it was really impressive to see the old champions, but this time with a unique twist. Some of these changes were quite simple, but nonetheless still a challenge. On top of these enhanced abilities, bots could also possess unusual passives known as curses. Examples include being able to use Anivia's rebirth upon death, or creating a LeBlanc style clone of themselves when they reach below 40% health. The addition of curses made the difficulty of Doombots increase drastically. It was one thing to understand and learn the champion's new enhanced abilities, but now players had to deal with an RNG element of what curses the enemy bots possessed, making it more difficult to play around them. Specific AI changes were also made, including having the team of 5 group up to kill Dragon or having Blitzcrank laugh at you if you missed a skill shot. The latter was particularly realistic, as every Blitzcrank main does this. Whilst the game was indeed fun and challenging, this isn't to say that there wasn't some strategies out there which made the game a bit more easy. Players could deploy the Tryndamere technique and split push the entire game. It makes sense. I mean, why bother fighting 5 behemoths when you're most likely going to lose due to the enhanced abilities? However, this technique wasn't the all-knowing prima strategy guide bestowed upon by God, as going alone was still quite risky if you had to fight the enemy AI along the way. Overall, I feel like Doombots 2014 achieved a great balance between winning and losing. It wasn't so difficult that you felt hopeless, but it wasn't so easy that it got boring to play. I remember really enjoying this game mode and playing it a ton with my friends at the time. But can I say the same for Doombots 2016? It was 2016 came along and the community, myself included, were anticipating the return of Doombots for Halloween. Sure enough, Riot delivered and we got a new revamped version of Doombots. The way the game mode was played was now drastically different. It felt like freaking Bloons tower defense. The idea this time was that the bots would rush each and every lane of yours and you had to survive for 15 minutes. You could not push back by taking any of the enemy's towers, you simply had to defend. At the end of these 15 minutes, a big ass teamer would be summoned and you had to defeat him to win. Another addition was the inclusion of quests where if you got a certain amount of kills, you unlocked bonuses for your team, such as more gold or increased damage. New Doombots were also added, such as Yasuo, who was not changed in the slightest, and Udyr, who would summon jungle camps to push lanes. Udyr was by far my favourite new additional Doombot, and it showed just how creative Riot was when making the new AI. Alongside this, there were also new curses, such as Yasuo's wind wall, and the brush being on fire if you stood inside of it. Overall, the new additions to the game were so much more inspired and creative compared to the previous Doombots. However, I can't really say that the new way that Doombots played out was more fun than the original. It was still a good experience, don't get me wrong, but having to suffer through 15 minutes of bots constantly pushing your lane only for the main objective to then spawn doesn't really feel good. The reason why tower defense games are so fun to play is because of the variety of weapons you have at your disposal, and I'm not gonna lie, 4 abilities doesn't really feel like much. Maybe it's a bit unfair to class it as a tower defense game, but the concept is still fairly similar. Additionally, for the first 15 minutes your only goal is to defend. Although I criticise the original Doombots for being easier for having split pushing as a strategy, at least here you have more methods and techniques to win the game. This is just my opinion honestly, and I know a lot of people who still enjoyed it. overall I feel like some of the additions were a really good improvement, whereas the drastic game mode change was a good idea, but could have been executed a bit better. In conclusion, honestly, Doombots was a really fun addition to League at the time. It showed to players that Riot could shatter players' expectations and really think outside of the box instead of having simple PvP game modes such as Hexakill. Of course, the PvE events that followed were a whole lot better than Doombots, but for Riot's first dive into this kind of thing, it was really creative. Personally though, I preferred the first Doombots to Doombots 2016. Sure, it was a lot more simple and less creative with the champions and curses, but I enjoyed the goal of having to destroy the enemy's nexus. It had a great balance between easy and difficult, and you could approach the objective in different ways. Doombots 2016 however just felt a bit repetitive and stretched out to me. Despite my opinion, both of these versions were still really good, and Doombots goes down as one of the best featured game modes that Riot has come out with. I understand that currently the demand for featured game modes is quite low, however if Riot in the future decide to dive back into all of this, I look forward to seeing what they can come up with regarding PvE events. They were honestly really fun and a breath of fresh air from the stress of Summoner's Rift. Anyways, thank you for watching. Seriously though, Hexakill was boring as fuck.